Welcome to the Living with Grace series. In this session, we will be talking about forgiveness. Forgiveness is a very liberating act that frees us from the burdens of anger and resentment. Living with grace involves forgiving not only others, but also ourselves. It's about releasing grudges and embracing the transformative power of forgiveness, which ultimately leads to inner peace. Marianne Williamson says, the practice of forgiveness is our most important contribution to the healing of the world. And that's very powerful. Forgiveness in the context of living with grace is a deeply compassionate and transformative concept. It involves letting go of resentment, anger, or the desire for revenge towards someone who has wronged us. Living with grace in this context means approaching life with a sense of dignity, compassion, and a real commitment to maintaining our own well-being and inner peace. So here are some key aspects of forgiveness in the context of living with grace. As we already mentioned, compassion. Forgiveness begins with empathy and understanding for the person who has caused harm. It acknowledges that everyone makes mistakes and people often act from their own pain, ignorance, or misguided beliefs. Living with grace involves extending compassion to others, even when they have wronged us. It also involves a release of resentment. Forgiveness means releasing the negative emotions and grudges that can weigh us down. It's about choosing not to let past grievances continue to harm us. In the context of living with grace, this release is really an act of self-compassion that allows us to move forward with a lighter heart. Personal healing is another one. Forgiveness is often more about the person offering it than the one receiving it. When we forgive, we free ourselves from the emotional burdens of anger and resentment, which can have a really profound impact on our mental and physical well-being. Living with grace involves recognizing the importance of our own healing and growth. Reconciliation. While forgiveness is primarily about internal peace, it can also lead to reconciliation if both parties are willing. In the context of living with grace, reconciliation is a testament to our commitment to fostering positive and harmonious relationships, but it's not always possible or necessary. Setting boundaries. Forgiveness doesn't mean we have to forget or condone harmful behavior. It's essential to establish healthy boundaries to protect ourselves from future harm while still offering forgiveness and compassion. Living with grace means finding a balance between forgiveness and self-protection, gratitude and growth. Forgiveness can be an opportunity for personal growth and transformation. In the context of living with grace, it involves recognizing the lessons that are learned from difficult experiences and being grateful for the strength and wisdom gained. Self-reflection. Living with grace and practicing forgiveness often involves self-reflection. It requires a willingness to examine our own actions, motivations, and judgments, and to grow from these introspective insights. It's an ongoing process, right? Forgiveness is not a one-time event, but it's really an ongoing process. It may take time, and forgiveness can be revisited over and over again as we continue to work through our feelings and reactions. So in summary, forgiveness in the context of living with grace is a beautiful and profound act of compassion and self-care. It allows us to release the burden of resentment, find inner peace, and promote positive relationships while remaining true to our own values and boundaries. All right, so now we're going to be moving into a brief meditation. So just taking a moment to settle into your seat, uncrossing your arms and legs, closing your eyes if that feels right for you, or just softening the gaze. And then allowing a sense of arrival, arriving in the space that you're in, arriving in the chair that you're sitting in, arriving in your own body, and dropping into the present moment. Perhaps using the contact points of feet on the floor, sits bones in the chair that you're sitting in, or hands wherever they're resting, to allow a fuller sense of arriving into your body and arriving into this moment. And then tuning into the breath, just resting your awareness on the rhythm of your own breath cycle. And as you're following along, one breath at a time, perhaps feeling the gentle rise and fall of the body with each breath, feeling the ebb and flow of each breath as it comes and it goes. And as you're resting this gentle awareness on the breath, if you notice that your mind has wandered, it's perfectly fine. Just noting what the distraction was and then gently bringing your awareness back to the breath once again. And now, as you're ready, the invitation is to call to mind a situation where you felt you were wronged or you were harmed in some way. But choosing something mild, perhaps a 2 or a 3 on the scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most difficult. Calling to mind an instance where you felt wronged. Maybe it was unkind words from a spouse, or unreasonable expectations from a parent or a boss or an adult child. But just calling to mind one instance, so settling on one instance where you felt you were wronged or treated unfairly. Several may have arisen, but choosing one and then calling to mind the details, where you were, what was said, perhaps what wasn't said. And then recalling how you felt in that moment that you felt you were wronged or treated unfairly. Maybe it was anger or resentment, or a desire to lash out at the other person or persons. And then taking a moment to notice how, as you're recalling the situation and recalling the words, recalling the feelings, also tuning into where those feelings can be felt in the body. Maybe it's a tightness in the chest, a heaviness in the heart, unease in the stomach. Or just an overall sense of malaise. And now taking a moment to recognize that these feelings of resentment or anger or even bitterness that you're holding on to are only causing yourself harm. So, not condoning what the other person did and how you were treated, but simply recognizing that holding on to these feelings doesn't serve you. So, is it possible to soften around these feelings, to soften the feelings of holding a grudge or resentment, And if not letting go, but letting them be with a bit of space. And also, while still not condoning the behavior of the other person, is it possible to have some compassion or empathy, a slightly different perspective? Maybe they were just doing the best they could at that time. Knowing that they, just like you, have struggles, just want to feel accepted and loved. And maybe the intention was not one to cause harm. And if it's possible to have a slightly more balanced view of the situation, letting go of some of that anger or resentment, knowing it's for the greater good, knowing it's for your own best interest. And so tuning into how you're feeling in this moment. And if you are able to offer compassion, to do so. And if not, that's okay too. And if all you're able to do is create a little more space around those feelings, that's also okay. Knowing that forgiveness is a process. And so you can come back to this again and again at a later time. And now just beginning to let go of the practice. Gently opening your eyes whenever you're ready. And adjusting to the space that you're in. And I invite you to continue exploring forgiveness in the context of living with grace and what forgiveness can offer. The grace that forgiveness brings is one of the greatest gifts that we can give ourselves. Thank you for your practice. Be well and take good care.